Most men open their front door to a delivery guy or a neighbor. I opened mine to a woman in a black dress saying she needed a husband by tomorrow. The knock was sharp and controlled, like someone trying very hard not to fall apart. I left the overdue invoice on my kitchen counter, the red numbers screaming at me, and crossed the living room in my gray t-shirt and worn jeans. Outside, Seattle was still wet from a fresh rain. The sidewalk was dark and shiny, streetlights reflecting off the puddles. Cold air slid in as soon as I pulled the door open. Elena stood there. Not Elena, the untouchable CEO I had been building a custom library for these last 6 months. Elena, the woman. Fitted black dress, beige canvas duffel hanging off her shoulder like she had packed in 10 minutes and regretted every second. The ends of her dark, wavy hair were damp, like she had walked fast through the drizzle and did not care if it ruined the style. She held her phone flat against her palm, thumb pressed to the screen like my address was burned into it. "Read," she breathed. "I am in serious trouble." Quote, "Come in," I said at once. I stepped back and she crossed over the threshold, her jasmine perfume mixed with the smell of wet pavement and sawdust from my workshop. She did not look at my peeling baseboards or the old couch. She looked straight at me, like I was the only solid thing left in the world. She dropped the duffel. It hit the floor with a heavy thud. "My stepbrother found a loophole in the trust," she said, words fast, tight. "There is a morality clause. It is ancient, from the 50s, but the board is upholding it. If I am not settled in a domestic union by the start of the fiscal quarter, voting power goes to the next male heir." Her jaw clenched. "That is Julian. That is tomorrow." She lifted her chin like she had to force the next words out. "I need a husband by tomorrow," she said, "and it cannot be someone from my world. They will want shares. They will want control. I need someone I can trust to just show up." My mind did a fast spin through the last 6 months. Elena in sharp blazers, walking through my half-built library with quiet authority. Elena asking about sightlines and archival paper instead of the marble bar everyone else wanted. Elena signing my invoices on time, every time, when other clients made excuses. And then I thought of the red ink on the overdue bill behind me, the note from the bank, 2 days until they called my loan, 2 days until my guys lost their jobs. I met her eyes. "I will do it," I said. My voice came out rough but steady. A small flicker of relief crossed her face, so quick most people would have missed it. "But if we are selling this to a board full of old men," I went on, "we cannot look like we just met at the altar. We have to look real, lived in." I reached back and turned the deadbolt. The click sounded louder than it should. "Then you will have to move in tonight," I said. She blinked once, then exhaled slow, like she had been holding her breath since the day started. She nodded. "Okay," she said. "Tonight." In the kitchen, the air felt thick. Elena sat on a bar stool at my small counter, spine straight, leg bouncing under the wood. I poured hot water into 2 mismatched mugs. My life was wood, screws, and coffee. Hers was glass towers and board meetings. The 2 worlds looked wrong together, but she did not seem to notice. Her fingers twisted a slim silver ring on her pinky. I had seen that little habit before during site visits, when an engineer said something stupid. "Why me?" I asked, sliding a mug toward her. "You know plenty of men in suits, Elena. Why pick the guy who cuts your shelves?" She wrapped both hands around the warm mug and stared into the steam. "Because you listen," she said. Her voice dropped. "When I told the other contractors the library lighting had to be right for old paper, they rolled their eyes. You ask for the specs. You do not try to win the room. You try to solve the problem." Julian, her stepbrother, flashed through my memory. Perfect hair, perfect teeth, shoes that cost more than my truck. He had looked at me like I was part of the scenery, useful but forgettable. "If we do this," I said, leaning back against the counter, crossing my arms, "we have to be airtight. Julian will dig. He will look for financial cracks. He will watch how you correct me in public. He will try to pull us apart." "I know," she said. "That is why I came here first." She pulled a slim folder from her bag and set it on the counter between us, the kind of folder that usually meant fees and long meetings. It is a prenup and a short-term cohabitation agreement, she said. No pressure, no demands, just appearance, shared address, shared timeline. And a payment schedule. I held up a hand. Stop, I said. Her eyes flashed. Read. I am not taking money for a marriage, I said, keeping my voice calm. If you want to protect me legally, fine. If you want to keep my shop alive, do it clean. Hire my workshop for the next quarter as your maintenance contractor. Pay market rate. Prepay an invoice. That is a business deal, not a trade. For a second, something like pain crossed her face. Then her shoulders dropped half an inch. You are impossible, she muttered. I am practical, I said. Julian is going to try to paint me as a grifter. We do not hand him the brush. She watched me for a long beat, then nodded once. Fine, she said. I will have my counsel draft a work order first thing in the morning. I bumped the thermostat up a few degrees. Her arms were covered, but I could see goosebumps on her skin. We try to hit the courthouse at 8, I said, if Julian does not throw a wrench in it. Tonight, we get our story straight. Her lips twitched like she wanted to smile and did not trust herself. We are writing our own history, she said. Pretty much, I answered. We spent the next hour building a fake timeline that had to feel real. First phone call. First site visit. First argument about shelf spacing. First joke. First time she saw my shop. I told her about Marco, my foreman, and Lana, my bookkeeper who threatened to fight the bank with a stapler. She told me about board members with fragile egos and a security guy Julian had on his side. If you do not know how I take my coffee, I said, Julian will eat us alive. She blinked at me. Okay, she said. How do you take it? Quote. Black. No sugar, I said. If you ever put vanilla syrup in it, the marriage ends on principle. Quote. A small, real laugh pushed past her guard. By midnight, the rain had started again. It tapped against the windows like fingers. Elena's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at the screen. Her jaw tightened. He is already moving, she said. Julian? I asked. She nodded. His assistant just emailed my counsel. Emergency board meeting tonight at my house. They want to welcome the groom. Quote. I set my mug down. Then we do not hide, I said. Her eyes met mine. Fear and fire, both there. Okay, she said slowly. Then tonight, we stop pretending we are pretending. I grabbed my jacket. She picked up her duffel again. We were not married yet. We had no license, no rings, no ceremony. But as I locked my front door and walked her out into the wet Seattle night, it already felt like a line had been crossed. And there was no way back. Elena's place looked like a magazine cover, and the museum had a child. Glass. Steel. White marble floors so clean I was afraid to breathe on them. Floor-to-ceiling windows with the whole city spread out below like a map. I stepped inside and wiped my boots on the mat twice. It still felt wrong. The guest room is down the hall, she said. Her voice was smooth again, CEO mode sliding back in place. I will order food. We can review the story before Julian arrives. Elena, I said. She stopped in the middle of the open living room and turned toward me. The city lights painted her hair in little silver lines. If Julian is coming here to sniff around, he is going to check the bedrooms, I said. He will talk to security. He will look at the logs. He is not going to respect your space just because he shares blood. Her jaw tightened. He would not dare, she said. He is trying to steal your company, I answered. He will dare. I walked past her to the master bedroom. The room was huge. King bed in white linen, 2 nightstands with matching lamps, a chair that looked like art. No clutter, no dust, no life. I am sleeping in here, I said. Absolutely not, she snapped from the doorway. That crosses a line. You can take the guest room. Quote. I do not need the bed, I said, pointing at the velvet chaise near the window. I will take that, but my boots need to be by the door. My razor needs to be in your bathroom. If this looks like a sleepover, you lose. If it looks like a life, you win. She stood there, fingers digging into the back of the door frame. I could see the fight inside her. Control, fear, pride, need. "Fine," she said at last through her teeth. "Stay on your side." "Deal," I said. Before Julian came, I did a few small things. I moved one throw blanket from the perfect stacked pile to the back of the main couch. I put 2 mugs in the regular cabinet instead of the glass display one. I closed a cabinet door that had a faint ring mark from an old glass and wiped it clean. Elena watched me, arms crossed. "You are rearranging my house," she said. "I am making it look like someone lives here," I said. The doorbell rang. She straightened like someone had pulled a string in her spine. Julian walked in with a bottle of scotch and a smile that felt like a knife. He wore a dark suit and no coat, like bad weather did not touch him. His eyes skipped over the art on the walls and landed on me. "So this is the groom," he said. "The carpenter." "Elena already introduced us," I said, staying where I was. Once. It was enough. He poured himself scotch without asking permission. That told me exactly how he felt about her house. "Elena always did have a soft spot for charity cases," he said. I moved to the sofa and sat on the arm next to Elena. Close enough to be in her space, not close enough to trap her. I let my arm rest along the back of the sofa behind her shoulders. "It is not charity," I said, voice calm. "It is competence. Some men talk about building empires. I actually know how to pour the foundation." His eyes narrowed. "How did you two meet?" he asked. His tone was casual. His gaze was not. Elena opened her mouth. "Elevator malfunction," I said first. "She was late to a board call." I got the doors unstuck. Elena shot me a quick look. That had never happened. Not until now. Julian waited, hungry for the correction. "It did," Elena said smoothly, leaning into my side just an inch. "He got grease on his shirt, then apologized like it mattered. I hired his company that afternoon." Julian's smile twitched at the corner. "A crack. Cute," he said. He sipped his drink and looked me over again like I was a car he did not like but might have to drive. The questions kept coming. How long had we known each other? Where had we gone on our first date? Which side of the bed I slept on? I let Elena handle some. I answered others. When I answered, I always added one tiny detail only someone who lived with her would know. Her coffee at 5:30. Her habit of leaving shoes by the door in a perfect line. By the time he left, his smile was tighter. As soon as the door closed, Elena sagged against it for 1 second. Just one. Like a person dropping a weight. "He is going to come harder now," she said. "Good," I said. "He will be easier to hit." She actually smiled at that. The first night under her roof felt wrong and right at the same time. I took a fast shower and put my razor in her bathroom cabinet next to her things. Her expensive glass bottles and my cheap drugstore handle looked ridiculous together, but they were real. I slept on the chaise in the master, boots lined up by the door where security cameras would catch them. The city glow pushed around the edges of the blackout curtains. I expected not to sleep at all. Instead, I woke up at 5 to the soft sound of bare feet on the hardwood floor. I opened one eye. Elena stood in the doorway in a long, dark robe, hair down around her shoulders, phone in hand. She thought I was still asleep. She watched me for a second, the way my boots sat by the door, the blanket half kicked off my legs, the way my arm was thrown over my face. She looked like she wanted to say something. Then she turned and left. By 7:12 the next morning, she was in my passenger seat, hair pulled back, makeup perfect, phone on silent. My travel mug sat between her hands, my coffee black, still hot. We headed toward the courthouse. The sky was low and gray. My stomach felt like it was full of nails. Her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and went still. "Do not answer," I said. "Not now." She answered. "Yes," she said. Her voice went flat in a way I did not like. I only heard one side of the call, but it was enough. State compliance. 2 inspectors and an attorney. At her building. Right now. Asking for her by name. Packet in hand. Julian behind it. "If you leave," her COO said through the speaker, They will file an emergency hold on the trust. Elena looked at the courthouse sign as we passed it, and then back at the road. Why now? She asked, more to herself than to him. Because Julian called it in, he said. She closed her eyes for half a second and then opened them, hard and clear. Turn around, she said. Elena, I started. Turn around, Reed, she repeated. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. If he locks me out of the building, the courthouse will not matter. So I turned around. The rest of the day was fluorescent lights and slow poison. I paced outside a glass conference room while Elena sat across from 2 inspectors and an attorney. They spread her life out in front of her in neat piles. She answered questions. She pointed to sections of policy. She did not flinch, even when her hands shook under the table. At 4:46, she walked out. Her hair was still perfect. Her eyes were not. The clerk's office closed at 4:30, she said. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the crack under it. We missed it. And your deadline is tomorrow, I said. She nodded once. This is what he wanted, she said. He wanted us rushed and sloppy. I looked at her and saw the weight on her shoulders. Company, employees, name, legacy. And now me, with my shop and my debts stacked on the same fragile board. Then we are not sloppy, I said. We do this right. Fast but right. By 8:30 that night, we had everything filled out. License packet, trust affidavit her lawyers wanted, 2 sets of ID, proof of address. Proof of everything. The courthouse was dark. The notary office near her building was dark. Julian was probably sitting somewhere with a drink, already tasting her loss. Notaries have to work normal hours, Elena said quietly in the passenger seat. Some do, I said. Some do not. Marco's sister had a friend. That friend had a cousin. That cousin had a number. It led us to a narrow staircase above a 24-hour diner that smelled like fries and bleach. At 8:57, we climbed the stairs. At the end of the hallway, a small office door sat propped open with a stapler. Inside, a woman in reading glasses looked up from a desk covered in paper. You are cutting it close, she said. Story of my life, I muttered. Elena stepped forward. She set the folder on the desk with the same care she used for quarterly reports. Her hands were steady again. That was her power. Panic in private, precision in public. The notary checked our IDs, stamped the forms, and slid the affidavit back to us. 903 pages M. The timestamp was clean. Legal. A tiny black line that might decide both our futures. Then the notary asked for rings. Elena's fingers tensed in mine. We did not talk about that part, she whispered. It is okay, I said. I reached into my pocket. I had almost left it at home. At the last second, I slipped it in. A simple gold band, old and a little scratched. My grandmother's ring. She had left it to me when she died, with one note. Use it when it matters. I took Elena's left hand. Her skin was cool under my fingers, strong, not delicate. The notary watched. The diner sizzled below us. The hallway hummed. I slid the ring onto Elena's finger. It slipped past her knuckle like it had been waiting for that hand. Her breath caught. She looked down at the gold band, then up at me. With this ring, I said, and my voice went rough. I had not planned to speak, but the words came anyway. I choose you. Today, tomorrow, whatever this looks like. Her throat moved as she swallowed. I do, she said quietly. 2 words, no tremor. We signed. Ink, stamp, witness, done. Out in the hallway, her phone buzzed again. She checked the screen. It is the board secretary, she said. Emergency meeting at my house. 10 pages M. They want to welcome the groom. I stepped closer so only she could hear me. You have a choice, I said. If you want to walk away, we walk away now. We take your money, my shop, and disappear. New town, new contracts. No trust, no board. You would be free. Her eyes snapped to mine. Dark, bright, stubborn. No, she said. He is not taking this from me. I nodded. Then let us go home, I said, resting a hand lightly at her back. We have a performance to give. She exhaled and leaned into that touch for half a second before pulling herself together again. We walked down the stairs into the smell of fried onions and bleach, out into the cold night, and toward a house that still did not feel like mine. But she did. And that scared me more than any boardroom ever could. By the time we got back to her house, it felt less like a home and more like a stage. The board secretary's car was already parked outside, sleek and black. Lights spilled from the windows onto the wet pavement. Inside, everything was perfect again. Marble, glass, art. All carefully placed and somehow empty. "The guest room is still down the hall," she said automatically. "I am not hiding in a guest room," I said. "Julian will ask where I sleep. He will check logs. He will look for your panic." I walked straight to the master bedroom. The bed was still made like a showroom. "I will take the chaise," I said. "My boots by the door. My jacket over that chair. My razor in your bathroom. If this looks like a visit, he wins. If it looks like we are trying to build a life, he loses ground." She stood in the doorway, hands tight at her sides. "You are sure about this?" she asked. "No," I said honestly, "but I am sure I am not letting him pick me apart like I am a fake. If we do this, we commit." Her jaw clenched. Then she nodded once. "Stay on your side of the bed," she said. I smiled a little. "I do not need the bed," I replied. "I will let you keep your fortress." Before she could answer, the doorbell rang. For the second time that day, she put on her CEO face and walked to war. The board secretary was polite and stiff. He shook my hand like he expected sawdust to rub off. He walked through the house with a careful gaze, asking small questions that were not small at all. How long had I been here? Where I kept my tools? If we had plans to expand the family? Elena answered in calm, short sentences. I added small details when needed. The way she stole my flannel when she was cold. The way I always left coffee for her at 6:30. None of it was romantic. All of it sounded real. When he finally left, it was close to midnight. Elena closed the door and leaned her forehead against it for a second, shoulders shaking once before she straightened. "You did good," I said quietly. She turned, eyes shiny, but her voice steady. "Go to sleep, Reed," she said. "Big day tomorrow." I showered in her bathroom, my cheap razor sitting next to her glass bottles. The sight made something heavy and warm sit in my chest. I lay down on the chaise and listened. The city hummed outside. Somewhere in the house she moved. Drawers, light switches, quiet footsteps. At some point in the night, I woke up to soft steps at the door. I stayed still. She was there, silhouetted in the doorway. She looked at my boots by the door, the blanket pushed down around my waist, my arm thrown over my face. She stayed for 3 slow breaths, then turned and walked away. 2 weeks later, we had something that felt strange and steady. We were still pretending for the world, but inside the house there were small habits that had nothing to do with the trust. I left the coffee maker set for her before I went to the workshop. She never said thank you, but the pot was always empty when I got home. I started leaving a protein bar or an apple on top of her laptop. Those disappeared too. She started leaving small things for me. A clean towel on the bathroom hook after a long day. Bandages in the top drawer where I washed my hands when I came home with split knuckles. Extra hooks by the door so my jacket did not live on a chair. One night I walked in late, shoulders aching, covered in drywall dust. The house was cold. She kept the thermostat at 68 for focus, but her fingers were almost blue. She sat at the island with drawings spread out around her, shoulders tight. Without asking, I pulled a heavy wool blanket from the hall closet and walked over. She jumped when I draped it around her shoulders, then let out a slow breath and sank into it. "I did not ask for that," she said. "You are shivering," I answered, going to the fridge. "Hard to draw straight lines when your teeth are trying to do it for you." "I am fine," she muttered. "You can be fine and still be warm," I said. I started chopping vegetables for dinner. The soft thump of the knife on the board filled the silence. "Reed," she said after a moment. "Yeah." "Why are you still here?" she asked. "You could sleep at your place. No one would know." I did not turn around. "Julian would know," I said. Security logs, cameras, staff. He will keep pressing until you break. I am not giving him that. And you have not eaten since the apple I left you this morning." She went quiet. When I looked over, she was watching me with an expression I had never seen on her face. Not respect, not annoyance, something softer and more careful. "Thank you," she whispered. The next day, my world was the target. A black sedan started showing up across from my workshop, engine running, windows dark. "Boss," Marco said, walking over with a 2x4 on his shoulder, "you see that car again?" "Yeah," I said. "You got enemies now," he joked, but his eyes were sharp. "Not mine," I said. "Hers." 2 days later, the man from the sedan walked into the shop. "Henderson, clipboard, clean shoes." The kind of man who had never had to wipe concrete dust off his pants. "I am verifying residency and financial entanglement," he said, as if he was ordering lunch. He looked around the shop. The sawdust, the tools, the men working. He took it all in like data, not like life. "Standard due diligence for a trust dispute," he added. Marco bristled. "We don't do interviews without—" "I will handle it," I cut in, wiping my hands on a rag. I stepped between Marco and Henderson. "You want answers? Talk to me," I said. Henderson's eyes flicked to my hands. Split knuckles. Old scars. My forearms were still tense from hauling lumber. "You live alone?" he asked. "Not anymore," I said. "My legal address is Elena's house now." He wrote that down. "Debts?" he asked. "Past due note, workshop lien risk, any recent large deposits?" I stared at him. "My shop is busy," I said. "I get paid for work." "Paid by your wife's company," he said. "Paid through a signed work order at market rate." I corrected. "If you want a copy, ask her counsel." His eyes sharpened for the first time, not angry, interested. "If the board decides this marriage is fraudulent," he said, "your contracts could be thrown out. You understand that?" Marco took a step forward. I held up a hand to stop him. "I understand threats," I said quietly. "Try facts." He watched me for a beat. "Where did you sleep the first night you moved in?" he asked. It was a trap, but it was also simple. "On a chaise in the master bedroom," I said. "My boots were by the door. My razor in her bathroom. You can ask your security cameras." He made another note, then closed the clipboard. "Thank you for your time," he said, polite as always. As he walked away, he added, "Mr. Julian says you are temporary. Temporary men make desperate choices." The bay door rattled shut behind him. The shop felt too quiet. "Boss," Marco said, "this is getting real." "It has been real," I said. I picked up my drill and went back to work. It was the only thing that kept my head from spinning. That night, Elena noticed my knuckles. "You hit someone," she said as I washed my hands in her sink. It was not a question. "I hit a pallet jack," I said. The pallet jack did not deserve it. The water ran pink for a second around my fingers. She opened the drawer next to the sink and pulled out a box of bandages. She had bought them since I moved in. Quiet. Practical. She pressed one into my palm, her fingers brushing my skin for a brief second. "You can tell me when Julian escalates," she said. "I can handle him," I said. "You can," she said, eyes lifting to mine. "But you do not have to do it alone." That was the first time she said "we" without also saying agreement. Quote, "The real test came at the annual Foundation Gala. The room was a sea of crystal and black fabric. A live band played something smooth. People laughed a little too loud. Elena wore a midnight blue gown, low in the back, her hair pinned up. She walked into the ballroom like she owned gravity. When I stepped out in the tux she had rented for me, her eyes widened for a second, and her mouth actually parted. "You clean up well," she said, voice softer. "I try," I said. I offered her my arm. She took it. Her fingers curled around my sleeve with more pressure than the pose needed. The whole night was a game. Smiles for board members. Polite small talk for donors. Quick, sharp looks between me and Elena every time Julian drifted near. We moved as a unit, my hand at the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd. Her squeezed fingers when someone pushed too far with questions. Then the band started a slow song. "Dance with your husband," Julian said loudly from behind us. Too loud. The people around us went quiet and watched. Elena lifted her chin. "Gladly," she said. We walked to the center of the floor. I slid my hand to her waist. Her palm settled on my shoulder. Our other hands laced together. We started to move. Slow steps. Small circle. The rest of the room blurred. "You are doing great," I murmured near her ear. "I feel like I am waiting for the floor to open," she whispered back. "Maybe it will not," I said. "Maybe for once, something can just hold." She looked up at me. Her eyes were dark and searching. The distance between us was nothing. I could feel her breath on my throat. I could feel her fingers tighten on my jacket. My hand slid up her back, fingers resting at the nape of her neck. The base of her skull fit right in my palm. "Elena," I said low, "if I kiss you right now, everyone will see." "Good," she said. She tugged on my lapel, small and clear. I kissed her. Not for show, not to sell a story. Just once. Clean and hot and real. In the middle of a room full of people who thought they knew everything. She made a soft sound against my mouth and leaned in closer, fingers clutching my jacket. For a moment there was no board, no trust, no deadline. Just Jasmine, soft lips, and the steady beat of her heart under my hand. Then a voice cut through the music. "Well," Julian said right beside us, "isn't this touching?" We broke apart. He stood there with Henderson at his side. Henderson's face was dry and blank. Julian's smile was bright and mean. "This is Mr. Henderson," Julian said loudly. "He is an investigator for the insurance company behind the trust. He found something interesting about your marriage license." My stomach dropped. Elena's fingers tightened painfully on my arm. "The notary stamp," Henderson said, voice calm. 903 pages M. Hours after the county office closes. Looks less like normal process and more like a late-night favor. Julian stepped closer, eyes shining. "If that is fraud, Elena," he said, "you do not just lose the company, you go to jail." The chandelier light flashed off the gold band on her finger. She did not flinch. She lifted her chin and smiled at him, sharp and cold. "Then, we will correct the record in the morning," she said, "unless you are accusing the county clerk of a crime." Julian's smile jerked for a second. "I am accusing you of desperation," he said. "And I am accusing you of being predictable," she answered. The board members nearby pretended not to listen. The band kept playing. The storm had finally reached us. And this time, I knew I would either stand or fall beside her. The car ride home from the gala felt heavier than the tucks on my shoulders. Rain slid down the windshield in hard lines. Streetlights smeared gold on the wet pavement. Elena sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead, her hands clenched in her lap. "You did good in there," I said quietly. "He found the crack," she answered. "The stamp time. He is going to pull on it until everything rips." "We fix it," I said. "We file an amendment. We explain the late stamp. We let a judge yawn at Julian." "It is not just paper," she said. "He will drag you into it. He will say you chased me for money, for access. He will call every person you have ever worked with and tell them you married your way into contracts." Quote, "I can handle him," I said. She turned her head then, and I saw it. Not fear for herself, fear for me. "I cannot let him destroy your name," she said, voice rough. "That is where I draw the line." When we walked into the house, her control snapped like a pencil. "I told you," she said, dropping her clutch on the counter. "I told you he would find something. We forced the timing. We rushed. That stamp is all he needs." "Elena, I started." She went straight to her desk, yanked a drawer open, and pulled out a checkbook. The pen shook in her fingers as she flipped it open. "I am ending this," she said. "I will tell them I panicked, that you tried to talk me out of it. I will give you enough to pay off the shop, disappear, start over somewhere Julian has never heard of." She started to write my name. I walked over and put my hand over the checkbook. Not gentle, not rough, just there. "Stop," I said. "Read," she snapped. "I will not watch him tear you apart. Take the money and run." I lifted the pen out of her hand and set it down. "Is that what you think this is?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "A favor I can cash out of when it gets hard?" Her eyes flashed hot and wet. "I think you are a good man who stepped into a fire for me," she said. "And I am tired of people getting burned because of my name." I took the checkbook and closed it with my palm. Then I caught her wrist, not to trap her, just to stop the spiral, and turned her to face me. "Look at me," I said. She did. "You do not buy my silence," I said. "You do not buy my exit. I am here because I chose to be. I stay because I choose to." Her phone buzzed in her hand. She did not move to answer it. "You have a choice right now," I said, softer. "You can tell me to walk away, and I will. Or you can let me stand next to you when we walk into that boardroom. But you do not get to decide for me." Her mouth parted like she had a sharp answer ready. Then her eyes dropped to where my hand circled her wrist. Her shoulders lowered a fraction, like a knot finally letting go. She set the phone down on the desk. It kept buzzing. She stepped into my space, grabbed my shirt with both hands, and pulled me down. That was all the answer I needed. I caught her jaw with my fingers, thumb at the hinge, and kissed her. Harder than at the gala, with every lie and fear and promise packed into it. Her hands fisted in my shirt like I was the only steady thing left. When we broke apart, her forehead rested against mine. Her breath was shaky. "Do not walk away," she whispered. "I am not leaving," I said. "Not tonight, not tomorrow, not in that boardroom." We did not close doors. We did not turn off lights. The line between fake and real had already moved. We were not pretending anymore, but we still kept our steps careful. The next morning, the boardroom felt like a courtroom in a trap. Cold air, long mahogany table. Men in suits lined up on both sides. Julian sat at one end with a folder in front of him. Henderson stood by the wall, clipboard under his arm. "The evidence is clear," Julian was saying. The marriage was rushed and fraudulent. A last-second move to get around the founders' wishes. I moved to strip Elena of her voting rights and transfer them to the rightful heir. By rightful heir, he meant himself. Elena sat next to me. Back straight, hands folded, face calm. Only the quick jump in her neck pulse gave her away. "Mr. Reed," Julian said, his fake smile in place. "I believe your role here is simply to watch." I stood. "My role here is her husband," I said, "so I am going to talk." Julian rolled his eyes. "Please." "The floor is yours, Carpenter." I did not look at him. I looked at Elena first. Her eyes met mine. There was fear there, but also trust. "You want to talk about the stamp?" I said to the board. "Fine. It was late. We rushed. You know why? Because I watched this woman hold up a company while people waited for her to fail. She asked for help once, and I did not want her to talk herself out of it." Julian snorted. "Spare us the romance," he said. "This is about rules. This is about what kind of people you trust," I said, turning to the other directors. "You think a late stamp makes this marriage fake. But I have lived in her house. I know how she works. I know she cuts her own bonus when projects slip so juniors do not lose jobs. I know she keeps this place steady when others would have cashed out." I pulled a folded paper from my pocket and laid it on the table, the work order. "This is the contract between my workshop and her company," I said. "Market rate, signed before the marriage. This is how she helped my shop, not with a secret payoff. With a clean deal, on paper." A few board members leaned forward to look. "Julian says I am temporary," I went on, "that men like me make desperate choices. Maybe, but I know how to build things that do not fall when someone leans on them." I looked at Elena again. "And I am more afraid of losing her than I am of losing this job," I said. Silence rolled through the room. Elena stood. "Reed is right," she said. "The marriage was fast. But it is not fake. If this board believes my competence disappears because my family tied an outdated rule to my name, then accept my resignation." The room gasped. Even Julian's face slipped. He had expected her to beg, not to offer to walk away. "If I go," she said, "you get your precious clause. You also get to explain to shareholders why the only person who knows every inch of this company is gone." She turned to me first, then to the board. "Or," she added, "you can look at the numbers. Look at Sterling's mess from 3 years ago that I cleaned. Look at Julian's record of half-finished projects and missed deadlines, and ask yourself who you trust with your money." She sat down. Her hand found my thigh under the table, a small grip, strong as steel. The board asked questions. They asked Henderson about stamps and notaries. He answered in calm, dry words. Irregular, not illegal, needs correction, not fraud. They did not vote right there. They never do. Too much pride tied to a show of process. But when we walked out of the building into cool air and low clouds, I could feel it. The balance had shifted. "You resigned," I said, stunned. She let out a small laugh that sounded half hysterical, half relieved. "I bluffed," she said. "They will not accept it. They need me more than they need him, but I had to mean it when I said it." She stopped on the sidewalk. The rain had stopped for once. The world smelled like wet concrete and clean air. "What you said in there," she started. "I meant it," I said. "All of it." "Even the part about being more afraid of losing me than losing your job?" she asked quietly. I reached up and tucked a piece of hair behind her ear. My thumb brushed her cheekbone, soft and brief. "That part especially," I said. Her eyes shone, but she did not cry. She just nodded once, like a decision landing. "So what now?" she asked. "The crisis is over. The agreement did its job." "You tell me," I said. "Do you still need a husband by tomorrow?" She smiled then, small and real. "I need you," she said, "not for a trust, for home." The shop was quiet that night. Just the soft scrape of my broom and the smell of cedar. I was trying to wear out the nervous energy in my bones. The front door opened. I looked up, expecting Marco. It was Elena. She wore jeans and boots and an old hoodie under my flannel. She looked smaller, younger, maybe because she was not carrying a briefcase or a board on her shoulders. "You kept that," I said, nodding at the flannel. "I earned it," she said. The corner of her mouth lifted. She walked toward me and held out something small, a key. Not shiny new, a little worn at the edges. It lay in her palm with a single folded paper clipped to it. I took the paper. It was a work order, my name on it, her signature at the bottom. Project: renovate main residence to convert to shared home. Budget: open, within reason. "Make it a home," she said simply. "I cannot live in a museum anymore." "My house?" I asked. "Our house," she corrected. Her fingers tightened on the key for a second before she let it drop into my hand. I looked at the key, then at her. "You could have hired your facilities team," I said, "the ones who know all the specs and systems." "They do not know where I keep the scars," she said. My chest pulled tight. I set the broom aside and stepped closer. She smelled like jasmine, sawdust, and cold night air. My hand found her waist, steady and sure. Her hands lifted first. She grabbed the front of my flannel and pulled me in. I kissed her, not careful, not fake, just real. Heat and relief, and something solid enough to build walls on. When we broke apart, she rested her forehead against my chest. "Reed," she said softly, "do not disappear on me." "I am not going anywhere," I said. "I can survive losing a job. I cannot survive losing you." She breathed out a laugh that shook a little. "Good," she whispered, "because I need you at 9 tomorrow." "For what?" I asked. She tapped the work order in my pocket. "A walkthrough and a list," she said. "If this is going to be our house, I want it done right." I smiled, a real one this time. "Yes, ma'am," I said. She rolled her eyes, but her smile matched mine. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside my dusty workshop, under cheap lights and the hum of an old heater, something finally felt steady. I did not just have a client anymore. I had a partner. And for the first time in a long time, the future looked like something I could build, with both hands and both hearts.